Good evening, and welcome to the Film Club podcast. You know, I'm gonna miss saying this.
I mean, you've only ever really said it twice during our whole Hitchcock month.
I know, I really dropped the ball, and this is the last episode of Hitchcock month, unfortunately.
I mean, we're ending with the best, really.
I'm still with Psycho being the best, but Rear Window is also a really good movie.
Yeah, Rear Window stars Jimmy Stewart, Grace Kelly. It is this hypnotic story of L.B. Jeffries, this photojournalist that's now basically confined to his apartment with a broken leg, that observes the strange goings-on with his Greenwich Village from his rear window and believes he sees a murder take place, and then enlists the help of the beautiful, lovely, best Hitchcock blonde there was, Lisa, played by Grace Kelly, to help unravel the mystery.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta look out your own window and see what's going on in the world.
Yeah, sometimes you find something kind of nice.
Yeah, you know, the more you observe, the more things you see. I kind of had a situation like this with a past neighbor who I'm pretty sure was a killer, or, you know, there's something shady going on in the house.
More likely you're just really paranoid.
I don't know, dude was very odd.
Very paranoid.
Nah, very odd.
Very paranoid. But yeah, everyone, we're talking about Rear Window. This was this Hitchcock's first Paramount movie?
You know, I'm not sure. I know that this one came before Psycho.
Yeah.
So,
Psycho was 1960. This was 54.
This was 54. We had, Vertigo in between this.
Also, North by Northwest. And, because this is, I feel, where like a new era of Hitchcock kind of started. His like Technicolor Paramount stuff he did in the mid 50s all the way through to Psycho.
Yeah, and I mean this movie,
the birds, but yeah,
the birds too. Yeah, but this movie just feels larger than life because Psycho, we have more land and places that we go, and in this we're just in an apartment the entire time.
Yes,
and you feel like you are standing in that apartment with Jimmy Stewart, just surveying the whole neighborhood, basically.
Well, this feels like we are seeing Hitchcock really stretching what he can do as a director, because in this, it's just the apartment, like you said, and we're following a character that you could say is kind of like not a great character. He's not like a hero figure. He's a little bit of a creep. He's not exactly the most altruistic guy, and it's also fascinating because it's such an enthralling little mystery. Everything seems to line up where Jeffries is just a crazy person, and it's like a really fascinating kind of movie.
And he gets that moment where it's like, ha, I am not a crazy person. I proved you wrong. You should have listened to me from the beginning.
You really like it when you get to say, ha, you motherfuckers, you were all wrong. I am the true smart one.
You love doing that.
Oh, it sustains me.
I know.
But, yeah, and I think this is just a fascinating look at what Hitchcock can really do, because I think this is what people point to say, oh no, Hitchcock's a master director, because we're a movie that takes place in basically one room.
Yeah.
And, like, what we can see out of the back window of said room.
Yeah, and the fact that, when he was making this movie, directing this movie, he did everything from Jeffries' apartment. He never went into any of the other apartments. He wanted to be like Jeffries, and this is my vantage point. How can I work with it?
Yeah, and even within the tone of the movie, you really feel like this is another thing like Vertigo, like Psycho, where Hitchcock is commentating on his own voyeurism, his own desire to like look out and spy on people and get these, different perspectives. And also, you can even view this film as an allegory for filmmaking. I know some film critic was talking about that, where Jeffries, Jimmy Stewart's character, is set up as the director, and he's looking out on this big grand set, and he's using his binoculars or his camera to literally be the camera, to direct the action, to craft this narrative.
You have Mrs. Torso across the way, where she's this beautiful, talented woman, but will she ever find love, or is she just gonna rope in the one successful rich man that can, provide for her for the rest of her life?
Mrs. Lonely Heart, who is so just saddened to be all alone in her apartment, and you're like, is she going to kill herself? Will she find love? And then you have the musicians across the way, the newlywed couple. What this is Hitchcock telling 5, 6 different and equally compelling little narratives inside one movie, where the main focus is just, oh, the guy across the way killed his wife,
and just so happened to get caught.
Yeah, and even then, because I think the issue is I remembered the movies that ripped off Rear Window, or like the remakes where, oh, you see the murder.
Yeah.
Like you see the husband kill the wife, and it's very obviously up front. But in this, you don't actually see it. It's like a scream off screen, and that's it.
And a glass breaking.
And I think that's the thing that's so fascinating about this is, if you don't really know the gist of Rear Window, you could think Jeffries is lying. Like, it's a guy who just got a little stir crazy and is trying to come up with something for the boredom.
Yeah, and it kind of goes with reality. Like, again, where I live close to where a bar is. I hear a lot of people screaming. You hear lots of random things, and you're thinking, oh my god, someone's being killed outside. And then it was just this one isolated moment.
It was probably a couple of drunks, horse playing out in the bar parking lot.
Yeah, and, that could be like this movie, where his friend is telling him, nothing happened, you're just bored out of your freaking mind, and you're trying to figure out something to do while you're stuck in this apartment.
You want to talk about Jeffries for a second?
Yeah, let's talk about Jeffries. Played by Jimmy Stewart.
Played by the great Jimmy Stewart.
I was wondering if we were going to get an impersonation today.
Oh, you're gonna get a lot of that tonight. But, so, is Jimmy Stewart a good guy? Or, not Jimmy Stewart, Jeffries. Because I think I mentioned that I don't think he's a very heroic character. Like, he's kind of a creep. He's not... Obviously, he's dumb, because he is not jumping on that Grace Kelly, like... Come on now.
Yeah, that was the hardest thing to watch in the movie, where it's just, she's so in love with him, and it's not like she's being a creep or anything about it. It's like,
she's being a little bit of a creep about it.
Not too much.
You're just saying she's not being a creep because she looks like Grace Kelly.
I mean, Grace Kelly's one of the most beautiful women to have ever existed, but...
Accurate, yes.
But, she's trying to say, if you can't change for me, I could change for you. I could live out of a suitcase. I just want to be with you. And I was sorry, sweetheart, I don't think so. You're just not doing it for me. But
I'm like, bro, she'll do it for a blind man. Like, my God, look at this woman.
But, just seeing when Lisa puts herself into danger towards the climax of the movie. And obviously, what is Jeffrey's going to do with a broken leg in a wheelchair to save her? But, the best he could do is look away. And I'm just like, really? That is what you do? Throw something. You're not gonna, hit that window, but you're gonna get somebody's attention. It's like, help, be a hero. And he's clearly not that much of a hero.
And I think that's the interesting thing about Jeffries, because on the front of it, he's supposed to be like... He's basically Indiana Jones. He's this globe-trotting, adventurous kind of guy.
I love
the way... played by Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah, but I love the way that his apartment is designed, where you could tell that this is just the place that he comes and he drops his stuff off, cleans up, and then takes off for another assignment.
Yeah.
And you have all these great pictures on the wall of explosions and planes, and just seeing that he is, very much like he just says, a boots on the ground kind of guy, where, I'm living in the back of a Jeep, I eat what I can, it's miserable work, and then, you have this murder that's across the way, and your girl's in trouble, and let me cower away.
But that's the thing, because I know you're really hung up on the fact that Jeffries is this ineffectual heroic character. I'm not even that hung up on him being ineffectual, because he has a broken leg, he can't really do much, and he's and all that. But my thing is, like, at the core of him, they're trying to make him look like this, granted this is before Indiana Jones, but this adventurous character, this globe-trotting adventurer. But when you get down to who he is as a person, he's like, this voyeuristic guy, he's creeping on the neighbors, he's one of these people that doesn't really seem to have any real direction in life, even though he's in his Jimmy Stewart always is one of these guys that either looked 25 or 55.
Yeah.
It depends on the year, and we're looking at 55-year-old Jimmy Stewart here.
Yeah, he's very lost.
Yeah.
I mean, for being a guy that, goes on assignments and goes to war-torn countries and puts himself into danger, basically, and has, somebody that's interested and wants to settle down with him, he still kind of can't find his way out of a paper bag.
Yeah, and then we have this whole thing going on where he is spying on his neighbors and he's trying to figure out this crime, this mystery, but it really does feel like he's doing it out of almost selfishness. The whole reason he's not taking no for an answer on the obvious bits of evidence that say this isn't true, this isn't happening, yada yada, and obviously because for the narrative, but also because he seems to be so like, I can't be wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I'm L.B. Jeffries.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the photojournalist extraordinaire. I'm Indiana fucking Jones. I can't be wrong. And also, my God, I'm so bored. Please, God, let something interesting happen in my dull day-to-day life where I sit here being fed lobster by Grace Kelly.
Ooh, how I have it rough.
How boring is my life.
But yeah, it's not till later in the movie where we see a shred of doubt in him that this isn't real. This isn't happening. But then it's wiped away very fast.
Exactly, because this is a Hitchcock movie, and obviously somebody actually died.
Yeah.
It's just an interesting thing about this Jeffries character, because Jimmy Stewart, I think if you look at his entire career, he's been pinned as the nice guy.
Yeah.
Like, he's always like, oh, he's the aw shucks hero, this guy, down on his luck, but he'll get there, he'll win the day. But in all the Hitchcock movies I see him in, Rear Window, Vertigo, like, he is Rope. He's kind of creepy. He's not like the most heroic person. He's playing a little bit against type. Like, we come in with a preconceived notion of, oh, Jimmy Stewart, he's the aw shucks hero. He's gonna win the day. But really, he's a more complicated character in the Hitchcock films I see him in than in something like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, or It's a Wonderful Life, which might be his best performance in It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's not one of my favorites.
Really?
Yeah, I mean,
I really enjoy It's a Wonderful Life. I saw it for the first time like last Christmas,
and it changed your life.
Changed my life. Great movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good film, but it's just, I don't know, it's too much emotion.
I guess that's my thing. Like, going into this, when you look at the Jimmy Stewart character, right? Because he has a type, right?
Yeah.
Do you think he fits into this role as Jeffries? Or is this like a Cary Grant role kind of thing?
No, I'm not really getting Cary Grant. I could see this role as Jimmy Stewart, because he's just that versatile.
Yeah.
So, I'm not getting too much creep from him in this movie. I'm getting just more obsessive compulsive. It's like, he's a photographer, he's very structured, this is how I do my work. I can't do my work. So now I just have to sit here for a month and wait, for this to heal until I can get back up and go again. But I'm going to make this my job now. I heard this thing, I'm not going to sleep in my bed. I'm going to stay glued to this window and get every piece of information that I can.
I think that's another interesting thing. He's a photographer. His job is being a voyeur. His job is staring at people, watching people.
Kind of blew your mind there a little bit.
No, I hit it to you. I was waiting for that bounce back. Like, this is a dialogue. I hit the tennis ball of conversation to you.
You just had that look in your eye, like, oh, well, yeah, that's part of photography. Yeah, you're supposed to sit there and you observe, you capture what you need to capture, and he didn't see the crime happen, but he heard it, and it's just like towards the end of the movie with the dog, where that's the only time that collectively all the neighbors gather.
It's also the only time we really break the immersion of the house, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because in that scene in particular, because I love how Hitchcock composes images in this movie. Because throughout the whole movie, we're looking out his back window. But when the dog dies, we're cutting to weird angles, like close-ups of the neighbors and things like that. Where now it looks like we're sitting in the middle of the courtyard. Yeah. Like, we're from like the dog's perspective now. Mm-hmm. And it's really fascinating he does it there.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering why we cut there in particular. Like, why does he decide to put us in the middle of the courtyard in that scene as opposed to any other time in the movie?
I don't know. I thought it was weird when it happened, but
It's one of those filmmaking things. You're like, I don't fucking know. It's neato.
yeah, I mean, it could have just been, we're starting to get to the climax. Let's really kind of, all right, we're gonna expand. We're not gonna just be in this room anymore. We're gonna start to follow, like, Lisa when they go down there to dig up the flower bed. So it's like we're expanding the world a little bit more than what Jeff can, walk into.
Yeah. Also, why do they gotta kill the dog? Why you gotta kill the dog?
Yeah, that was heartbreaking. And again, that's a long shot for, the dog saw too much. Really, who's gonna believe that the dog saw too much?
Why are you gonna kill the fucking dog? Like, whatever. It's an interesting mystery. But we've talked a lot about Mr. Jeffries.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the Hitchcock blonde, the one that everyone has unanimously agreed on is the best Hitchcock blonde? Every poll I've ever seen of people talking about the Hitchcock blondes, they could point to Miss Grace Kelly.
Even Hitchcock was like, she is the best Hitchcock blonde. They're like, Janet Leigh, close second, but he killed her, so you can't work with her again. That's a Hitchcock rule. Once he kills an actor off, you're done. You don't come back.
Is that really a Hitchcock rule?
Yeah, because Kim Novak wanted to work with Hitchcock again, but she dies in Vertigo. So he's like, I'm sorry, sweetheart. I don't work with the people that die in my movies.
Was that actually him saying that? That's fascinating. I'd have to watch a lot more Hitchcock movies to say that, but because I don't know how many times he reworked with actors. I know he worked with Jimmy Stewart a couple of times, and I think he worked with Cary Grant a few times.
Yeah, I think he worked with Jimmy Stewart 4 times. And Jimmy Stewart said in interviews that this is his favorite film that he's done with Hitchcock.
It's the best one.
I mean, because it feels like, his character in this movie and Vertigo are kind of similar, where, they're observant, they're trying to figure out what's going on.
They're a little creepy, but they're not gross. They're a little off, but they're not insane.
Yeah, they both take on this investigative kind of role, I'm the one that is seeing this, I need to figure this out. And it's kind of interesting to see that out of the two, this is his favorite versus Vertigo, where it's just a more expansive world.
It's a more complex film. That's the biggest argument with when people say, oh, Vertigo is the greatest Hitchcock movie versus Rear Window. Vertigo is a really complicated movie if you try and lay it out. Because it's this movie about double crosses. It's this movie about like dual identities, and there's this mystery going through it, but that mystery is pseudo-solved, then re-brought up, then solved again. But Rear Window is straight to the point. It's very simple. All it's about is trying to solve this one singular murder that seemingly never happened. And it's not this movie that travels all across San Francisco. It's not this movie that travels all across the nation like in North by Northwest. It's a movie that takes place basically even more simply than Psycho. Like, this is in a guy's apartment in the courtyard behind his house.
And that's why I thought, he might have picked Vertigo or something else, because that's hard, just to be confined to one room for the entire shooting of this movie and the courtyard.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even get into the courtyard until the very end of the movie.
And it's like a shot. Also in a badly composited shot right before that.
Yeah.
1954 special effects, baby.
They tried.
Yes. Weren't we talking about Grace Kelly a second ago?
We were.
Exactly. Oh, that's because we were talking about the Hitchcock blondes.
Yes, and how she is the
ultimate.
Yes. She is the Holy Grail.
Because, I mean, the stereotype of the Hitchcock blondes comes from this 50s run of Hitchcock, right? Rear Window, North by Northwest, Psycho, The Birds, Vertigo. Those movies are really where we get this stereotype of Hitchcock loves these kind of ethereal, beautiful blonde women.
Smart women.
Yeah, women who outsmart the leading man in almost every one of the movies, or who are, they're, for the most part, they're more complicated.
Yeah.
And, why do you think Grace Kelly kind of stands head and shoulders in this, like, canon of actresses?
Because she just has that air about her, and it's, you don't get any condescension from it. It's just, she is this beautiful woman, but you could also tell that there is a kindness there. And I think that's, why they had such a good friendship, because she was authentic, she was herself, and, you get that from her. And you get that with Lisa's character, where, he's trying to tell her, you have this city in the palm of your hand. What do you really need me for? And it's just, it's like, I have all of that, but I'm willing to give it all up for you, because that's what my heart wants. And he just can't wrap his head around that. And I think that's why I feel so much for Lisa in this movie, because she is just trying to be part of his world, even though he tells, what is it, like his in-home care worker that helps him?
I have her name right here. It's one of
Ritter?
Ritter?
Thelma Ritter.
Oh, yes, the actress's name. Sorry, for some reason I was like, the character's not... The character's like Stella or something.
Yeah, no, I couldn't remember her name, but I remembered her last name. Stella, who is kind of like the angel on his shoulder that's telling him, you need to settle down, you need to do,
She's like, honey, I've been married for 20 years, you don't even know what you're missing.
Even the basics of, why don't you sleep in your bed instead of sleeping in your chair? These basic things that she's trying to help this man. And he's just, she'll never accept me because I'm living paycheck to paycheck. And you've got Lisa telling you, I don't care, what your life story is. I want to be with you.
I want to talk about their relationship for a second, because that's an interesting thing, because I think Jeffrey is thinking altruistically about it. He's like, I don't want to put this beautiful woman who's this member of the aristocracy, basically, of like New York City. Like, she's rich, she's fabulous, she's like a fashion designer, model person. Whatever she does, she looks like Grace Kelly, so she's doing it well.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't want to put her through that kind of a hard life. If she wants to be with me, that's going to be too much for her. And she's on the other side, and I wonder if for Jeffries, he's thinking, oh, she's just naive. She doesn't really understand what I'm talking about.
He's thinking more analytically, where, I don't have the money to buy her these dresses that she likes. I don't have the money to give her these grandiose dinners that she loves and cocktails.
To pamper her, basically.
Yeah. And you have her on the flip side, where if this is an issue and you're kind of feeling inadequate about, I have to leave the country and be in dangerous conditions when I do my photo shoots, with your catalog, you could open up your own studio, or, hey, I'm in the fashion district, so I can get you in with some of these big companies. You could work for Harper's Bazaar. And he's just, no, that's logical, but that's not me.
It's just an interesting thing, because I'm trying to figure how these two on paper are so incompatible, but the performances of the actors make it work. Because
it's going off the whole opposites attract.
Mm.
You can tell that there is love there. It's not, kind of like a weird pairing where it's like, oh, they're supposed to be romantically involved, but you could tell that there's just no chemistry there.
It is almost like when Jimmy Stewart and Kim Novak were in Vertigo, and we had the huge hurdle having to cross where they look like, or no, him and Midge.
Yeah.
Yes, when it was like Midge and Jimmy Stewart were supposed to be romantically involved together in Vertigo, and we had to cross that huge boundary of what is the context of this relationship?
Yeah.
Like, he is so much older than her.
Yet they went to college together.
Yeah, and she seems so, like, in another world than he is, and you couldn't really see this as a romantic thing. And then even when Scotty, Jimmy Stewart's character in Vertigo, falls for Kim Novak's character, you're even like, this is such a weird mixture. He's not really like in a romantic in love with her. He's more in like an obsession with her. And in this, it's a lot more of like a loving feeling. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, and you have the two of them, well, it's mostly him, bickering at her, because she's just really trying to, lobster dinner, and I'm here, and I was thinking about you, and, oh, you think, your neighbor killed somebody? Well, I want in on this little investigation, more or less so I could just spend more time with you. But they seem, when they have their affectionate scenes together, they seem like a happy romantic couple.
Mhm.
It's not fake. It doesn't feel like, ooh, that must have been a rough day for them to kind of, just sit there and make out with each other. Like,
I don't think it'd be very rough to sit there and make out with Grace Kelly. I don't think that'd be
Probably-
a rough order.
Probably not, but it also shows the skill of these actors, just like kicking it back to Psycho with Janet Leigh and John Gavin, who plays Sam Loomis.
Yes, yeah.
That first scene when we see them in the bed, that was actually the first day of shooting for the movie. And they had just met, and she was telling, Hitch, hey, you know what, this is kind of awkward to get into bed with this guy that I've just barely met and, come across as a romantic couple. And he was just like, don't think it. Get yourself a little bit comfortable and you do what you need to do. And it's flawless. They come across that they have been in this, torrid relationship for who knows how long.
I mean, just looking at them as, like, actors, I would have thought that was like, oh, that's a little bit into filming. Like, they probably, like, knew each other, or they probably, like, rehearsed a little bit. But
that was day one.
As a day one performance, that's a really good portrayal of a romantic relationship on a day one performance.
Yeah, and, it kind of feels the same way with this movie. When they get into the initial fight where he's, like, trying to let her go, basically, and she gets upset and she's leaving. And she's telling me, I'm done. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. And he's like, well, are you sure? Like, not anymore? Do you know if there's a day? And she's like, until tomorrow night. And then they cut to tomorrow night and the two of them are kissing like nothing happened.
I think that's the thing about this movie that really works so well. And I think makes it more of a compelling story than, oh, it's this guy and he's solving the mystery across the way. And I think that's something that's missing from other movies that use the same premise or other pieces of media that use the same premise. Is this really, like, nice and interesting, like, romance going on? Because both of them are so different from each other, but you want to see them end up together. Because
Yeah.
it's a movie, right? You want to see the couple get married and have babies and have fun, right?
And the fact that his biggest gripe is that she's too perfect. Here she comes with the lobster dinner or these beautiful clothes, and it's just like, ugh, could this woman be any more perfect? I hate her.
I mean, I have a question. Is she perfect? She looks like Grace Kelly. She brings you lobster dinner when you're not feeling well. Ain't no chicken soup. Lobster dinner, also with the busboy, who brought it for her.
She's perfect.
She's perfect.
But in the best kind of way.
Yes.
But it's not until later in the movie when she's really getting into this investigative work with Jeffries, and she's, hopping over fences, and she's digging, and she's climbing up the
fire escape and sliding into the window, and you're like, oh my god, is she gonna fall? Like, she's in fucking 4-inch heels.
And
what
you
the
see,
fuck?
this genuine smile on his face, like, wow, she's awesome. And it's like, yes, and you're ready to throw her away because you think she's kind of, this doll that wants new dresses, and I gotta look pretty and perfect, and I gotta go get fancy drinks, and it's like, no, you're not giving her the benefit of the doubt.
Well, I'm not even know benefit of the doubt. I wonder if that's another intentional thematic thing that Hitchcock's working with, is men's tendency to see women as, porcelain dolls and not as like people,
Yeah.
And I know people have talked about this movie as being very representative of, like, the male gaze, where we are seeing this world through Jeffrey's eyes, and it's very man-centric. Mrs. Torso, he's ogling the hot blonde across the way, and he's kind of ignoring the musician over there. He's not doing anything, but he's really interested in this nice newly married couple that has their shades drawn. Oh, I wonder what's going on in there.
But even, the traditional stuff where he's carrying her over the threshold and the two of them making out, and he's kind of like, oh, another set of, saps that fell for it. And, you've got the husband that comes out to the window just to smoke and, honey, I need you for this and that. Like, she's calling me again. And he's just loving it because he's like, those married people, I knew it. He's like, they're suckers. But even when Jeffrey's friend, who is an investigator or
Doyle,
Doyle,
he's a detective.
He tells him what's going on, and he sees Miss Torso across the way, and he's like, how can you be focused on this married couple that, potentially the wife is dead, when you've got her, dancing around, being beautiful, being in her bra, And it's just like, yeah, you could see where that's where the male mind is trying to go in this movie. You know, ooh, pretty girl, I gotta look at her, I gotta ogle her.
Exactly. And also, I'm like, yeah, I understand you have Miss Torso across the way, but Grace Kelly is literally right in the kitchen making you like, again, that's the one leap of logic where I can't cross.
Even when
Like,
she
if I had a Grace Kelly in my kitchen, blinds are drawn. It is over. There's no movie.
There's no movie, but, you know, you see Doyle where he figures out that, you know, Grace Kelly's in the kitchen making, you know, warm brandies, and he's sitting there after he gets his brandy, and he's got this big smile, like, that's right, you know, a pretty girl, you know, gave me some booze to drink. This is the life. This is how it should be. And it's just like, dude, she's more on the ball with this investigation than you are, because you're just, nothing's happening. You're overthinking it. Give up.
And I think that's a really interesting thing about Rear Window is the fact that it is fully aware that it is doing the male gaze, that it is doing observation of the world through this era of sex and violence. That's very, you know, I think that's a thing that a lot of people just attribute to men are obsessed with sex and violence, and that's what this movie's obsessed with.
Yeah.
And then you have Lisa over here, Grace Kelly's character, who is like so like above all of that shit. Like, she's a gorgeous woman that totally doesn't care that she's gorgeous.
Yeah.
She's like this woman who should be so above this, like the violence of the world or whatever, and she's like, no, let's get down and dirty, you know, let's fucking grit this out. And it's a fascinating just character.
Yeah,
I really like them. I really like it.
Me too. And she's very much, you know, okay, your friend Doyle, who could have some pull and possibly get into this apartment, is not doing it. You know what? I'm gonna climb up. I might put myself in jeopardy, but I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna see what I can find. And she does it, and yeah, it is a heart-pounding scene.
Where else do we want to go here? What is your favorite scene? You know, you have the heart-pounding scene where Lisa's, you know, sneaking into the apartment. What's your favorite scene in the movie?
My favorite scene in the movie is probably gonna catch you off guard because it's probably not what you think I would choose.
Okay.
It's actually our first appearance of Grace Kelly, Lisa, in the movie. When she shows up and she's in that black and white dress with like the flowy overcoat that's...
And she starts turning on the lights and she's like, from top to bottom, Lisa, Caroline, Fremont, and she turns on all the lights.
Yeah, and you know, it's the amazing costume design by Edith Head. She worked with Hitch on Vertigo. She did like the whole thing for Madeline in that, you know, traditional gray suit that we have.
She did like all the Paramount movies for him, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, she was just a phenomenally talented woman. But it's just that reveal of her where it's just, she just suddenly appears and that costume is just so iconic. It's been shot and it's just partially a reason why I wanted to get into portrait photography, because it's just so striking. And for me, it's always stuck in the back of my head where, you know, that's just sheer perfection on the screen. And I mean, yeah, of course, I love the rest of the movie and there's so much, you know, to see and there's so much happening, but I think it's just the subtlety of that scene that, you know, makes me think of this movie.
I really like that, because that is... It's basically when the movie really gets started, and like that's the first moment of real conflict, of real interest, of us really seeing anything of substance for Jeffries outside of his, you know, little world, is when Lisa shows up for the first time. And also you immediately fall in love with her when she starts doing, you know, oh, I'm turning on the lights and I'm walking around, and she's doing that dialogue with Jeffries, and it's a great scene. That's a good scene.
Yeah, and I mean, she also kind of breathes life into the apartment, because with Jeffries, we see him and he's in his PJs and he's sweating and the apartment's dark, and you know, it's this kind of sad looking place, and her slowly turning the lights on and bringing food in. You're like, just in seconds, she's able to turn that small apartment into a home, a comfy, cozy place.
Oh yeah, and it shows like, yeah, Jeffries, you might resist this woman, but this woman brings stability to this guy's life that is, for the most part, very unstable.
Yeah,
and that's a really good scene.
Yeah. What's your favorite scene in the movie?
Oh, I'm piss easy. It's everyone's favorite scene. It's the opening. It's that opening shot where we go. we're out through the window, and we go across the courtyard, and we come back into the apartment, and we go over Jamie Stewart, and it lays out everything we need to know about his character, about this world, about this environment, without a single line of dialogue.
With the overlay of Franz Waxman's score in this movie.
Great score, and it's only used in the beginning and ending, right?
Yeah. And Franz Waxman, as you might know, is the artist that did the work for The Bride of Frankenstein.
Yes. Oh God, that's
we're taking
we're going back a few months.
Yeah, a couple of months, but we're also seeing it wasn't all Bernard Herrmann with Hitchcock. He kind of worked with different people.
Yeah, he worked with Bernard Herrmann like a few times, but it's like the times he worked with Bernard Herrmann were the one that everyone thinks is the best movie ever made and the most popular Hitchcock movie ever made.
And the sound that you think of when you think of Hitchcock.
Yeah. I mean, I really do love the score in this. And that opening sequence I love so much because, like, everything about Jeffries is laid out. And also the environment, like, we understand it's hot because, like, the sweat on his brow, the thermostat, we understand that...
It's a New York summer. It's supposed to feel hot and uncomfortable.
Hot, stuffy, clammy. We understand he's this photographer that travels around the world because we see all the pictures on the walls. We see, exactly how he got injured because we see the car exploding and coming at him. It's like, well, that's obviously how he broke his leg. And, like, all the stuff around his apartment. I think it's a fascinating way to do it in such an economical and genius way.
And it's also a diegetic movie?
Oh, yeah. Diegetic means everything heard in the movie comes from the movie, so all the music you hear is from within the film. It's not like a regular score. That's not diegetic music.
Yeah, and I think that's so genius, and it makes you really feel like you're in that apartment with them because... Well, why is there music? Oh, well, we have this composer across the way that's trying to figure out his next big hit to get him signed or to get this piece bought. And you've got, the dancer, who's Miss Torso, who's, I gotta practice and I've got, free music up the way. Let me do that. And you just have the regular sounds of the neighborhood going on.
And everybody's also listening to the radio. Miss Lonely Heart listens to some, like, sad, melancholy music when she's feeling down and she's all alone in her apartment. And it's just such a fascinating world that's built on this set. Because it is obviously a set, but it feels so real, even though you know how artificial it is. Like, they build this whole environment that you just get lost in.
Well, I mean, what's kind of interesting about this set, because... I mean, I feel like if you were to go and stand there, you'd feel like you're in the courtyard of...
Some New York village apartment building.
Apartment complex. But what was interesting was they had running electricity and water in those apartments. So they wanted them to feel as real as possible that you could, physically live there if you wanted to. And I think that just adds to that experience of, yeah, this is that person's home. We're seeing in, but... they could be, real people.
Well, that's the thing that a lot of actors do when they go into, like, sets or environments or anything like that. One of the first things most actors do on a movie set is they'll walk in and they'll just start touching shit.
Yeah.
Because they want to figure out, it's like, okay, does this door lead anywhere? Okay, does this sink actually do anything? Are these cupboards full of anything? Because they want to know how much they have to... like fake, but how much they have to like act. Like, how much do I have to act like this whole environment around me is a full 3-dimensional real thing? Or is it already a full 3-dimensional real thing and I don't have to worry about my environment? And I just have to worry about like my internal self?
Yeah.
And I think that's a genius thing, because let's be honest here, you don't need to really furnish most of these apartments. You don't really need running water or electricity or anything like that to most of these apartments, but doing that allows the actors to work so much easier because the apartment's real, I am this person, everything around me is real, so now it's easier for me to get to that place of this person.
Yeah, and being told, you do what your character does, go ahead, do it, and it's just, okay, well, I could just pretend to be myself while actually doing real things. It's not, me mimicking something or, pantomiming so the camera catches me. It's like, no, like Miss Torso, I'll actually dance and practice, and this is what I do. And it works because, she's actually dancing, she's actually doing what she does.
And she doesn't look like a lot of actors you see who aren't actual dancers, and everything looks a little like tight or awkward. She's like a real dancer, and this is just a really great movie at building a ecosystem.
Yeah.
I think it's like a movie, like a lot of movies like this are called bottle movies that take place in one location, and this movie takes place in one location. But the key to a good bottle movie is making that location feel real, so you don't sit there and call bullshit.
Yeah.
God, what was it? I think it was Saw 5 or 6. I don't remember. There's like 9 Saw movies now.
Yeah.
But I'm one of those people who watched every Saw movie because that was like the franchise that came up with me as I was going into horror adulthood. But I think it was like the 6th or 7th movie where people wake up and then this giant warehouse complex, and it's like, and it all takes place in that warehouse complex, so they're trying to escape, right? Well, yeah, it's like 3 out of the 7 of these fucking movies. But you watch that and you're like, well, that's kind of fucking bullshit. Like, you can't construct this. Like, this doesn't make sense. Like, the first one's like, okay, you're in an abandoned bathroom facility at the bottom of a warehouse. Okay, I can see that. Even the second one, okay, you're in like a rundown house somewhere. Okay, maybe. But then it's like, bro, I don't know how you were able to haul a 350-pound fucking guillotine into this room for one trap. Like, what is this?
Yeah.
And those ring like false. Like, that doesn't make sense because that environment doesn't function under like any logic. This, it's like, it's so well constructed, you forget it's a set.
Yeah, it's kind of like the movie Disturbia.
Yes.
Which
steals from this.
Yes, very much so. But we go to a couple of different locations in the movie because this is a more modern movie that's pulling off of this movie. But for the main character who is under house arrest, his world is the confinement of his house. So seeing your neighbor that committed a murder, you gotta run through different windows, you gotta see where you can, get as close as you possibly can. And you kind of get that with this movie where he could kind of, look out the window a little bit if he tries really hard. But that's it.
Did you like Disturbia?
Oh, I love Disturbia.
Okay, because I really liked that movie when it like came out. Because that was... when did that movie come out? It was because that was like when Shia LaBeouf was like becoming a like more mainstream actor after the Disney stuff, but it was before he like had that fucking breakdown, right?
I think this was around the same time as Transformers, so I'm guessing maybe
2008,
2009, or
maybe.
But yeah, I really love Disturbia. That's also actually a filming location that's fairly close to us.
Yeah, it is not very far from where we are.
And
but
it's fun to visit and see it, in all its glory, and like, wow, that they didn't really change anything.
Yeah, and the thing is with that movie, because that movie got into some trouble because they were like, oh, it's just doing Rear Window again.
Yeah.
And they had to explain that it's just using kind of the basic idea of this guy is trapped in his house and sees something across the way. But they play out completely differently. Yeah. But it's just kind of interesting because we talked about in Psycho how Psycho was remade in the 90s, right? And then they kind of remade it again with the Bates Motel TV series. And each time you really saw that they couldn't recapture that. They really couldn't recapture that magic of 1960s Alfred Hitchcock Psycho. Yeah. Like, the remake didn't work. Like, nothing felt right, even though it was, like, close to a shot-for-shot remake. Yeah. The TV show, I know people love that show.
The show's really good. It feels like they're close, but they're not quite there, but that feels like the most... Well,
you also got to think about it. It took them 30 hours of content to do what Hitchcock did in like 90 minutes.
Oh yeah.
And then it's like, well, you can't, it's hard to fucking compare them at that point. But with this, it's like, okay, the concept of Rear Window has been parodied and redone, and
Mm-hmm.
they remade this in the 90s with like Christopher Reeves as LB Jeffries, and then they did this again, like just the premise in Disturbia with Shia LaBeouf. And it's like, this concept works outside of the Hitchcock magic, but is this the best use of that concept? Is this Hitchcock Rear Window the best Rear Window?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
better than Disturbia, better than all the parodies, better than all the other ones.
Better than Disturbia, but I still love Disturbia a lot.
I think that's just like a good fun movie.
Yeah.
You know, out of anything, like I can still put on Disturbia and enjoy it.
Yeah, there's a lot of action. There is a blonde love interest in the movie. So it's like you see the parallels of that movie in this movie, but it's also trying not to be Rear Window. Versus, Psycho and Bates Motel. It is the same characters. We're just seeing it with a modern twist.
Yeah.
And they were able to make it work. They rebuilt the house, they rebuilt the motel. And it's like, yeah, you have, set design, you've got it down. It works, but it's not perfect like the movie.
Yeah, and I mean, we can go on and on about the attempts to recapture Hitchcock magic, and I mean, we can argue that Hitchcock made the first James Bond movie with North by Northwest.
Yeah.
And you were able to recapture that. Like, there's a 50-something years of James Bond movies that are just recapturing the North by Northwest magic over and over again.
I believe we're still waiting for our next Bond, right?
I think so. I don't know if they've officially cast a new actor to pick up after Daniel Craig. I know they're still talking about that, but I haven't watched 90% of the James Bond movies. I'll be real with you.
Oh no, I love James Bond movies. I haven't seen all of them.
Well, there's so fucking many.
Yeah, there's a lot. So I have never felt that need to, I gotta watch them all. It's like, I'm gonna take my time, watch one, here, I'll watch another one down the line. Mm-hmm. This way, I don't run out of them. Just keep it going at a slow pace.
You could probably watch one a month and you wouldn't catch up in 2 years.
Maybe.
But whatever. But I think that's an interesting thing as we've been talking this month about Hitchcock is what makes Hitchcock so unique. And I think in Rear Window we see how unique he is as a director. He's able to take these very simple concepts and wring all the suspense out of them. He's able to take these very tight, seemingly mundane locations, a man's apartment and a courtyard, and make them the most compelling place to, like, view drama.
Yeah, you don't ever feel like, I need to get out of this room. I want to be in this room because I want to see what is happening across the way. And I think that leads us into, we got to talk about who's living across the way.
Oh, yes, Raymond Burr in the worst wig in Hitchcock's canon. I love the fact that everything in this movie is fucking perfect. The sound design, the set design, the acting, the camera work, the color, the lighting. But they couldn't get anything better than a $1.95 gray wig for Raymond Burr. Oh my god.
I was okay with the hair. It was more the hat that was kind of like...
The hat that's a size and a half too small for his head?
That and also a white hat. I'm like, bruh, that thing's gonna get so dirty so fast.
Oh, come on. Look, there's a lot of things, but yeah. Raymond Burr, he's the killer across the way. He's playing Lars Thorwald, and his wife is Anna Thorwald, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what are your thoughts on him in the movie?
Comes across creepy. He's just got that vibe about him. And he's also kind of big in stature, so it's like, I could believe that, we don't know how exactly the wife dies, but hearing the scream and the breaking of the glass, I could believe that he could probably choke her out, and that was it.
Well, we know she gets chopped up, and
yes.
I think that's another thing. Hitchcock has this really weird sense of humor, and also kind of like a sick, disposition where he's like, oh, yes, he chopped her up and, saws and knives and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to show you it. I'll let your imagination do all the work,
exactly.
Though. But, it was bloody as hell, I swear to God, guys. Don't ask me to show it to you, though.
That's why he's the master of suspense. I don't have to do it. I just have to give you the idea, and I'll let you put those pieces together.
I think that's the genius of Hitchcock, and the genius of, like, Raymond Burr's character
Mm-hmm.
is we don't really know how dangerous he is. Honestly, we don't even know how big he is, because he's always so, like, isolated. Like,
Mm-hmm.
is he just, like, this short, frumpy dude? Is he this giant hulking mass? We don't even know until we get, like, a comparison when Lisa's in the apartment, because we know how big Lisa is, and then this guy towers over her.
Yeah.
And then when he's in Jeffrey's apartment, and we're like, a fucking gorilla has entered the room. It's over, Jimmy Stewart. It's done.
I mean, especially when, you've seen Jimmy Stewart and you know that he is this tall, lanky guy. And it's like...
The scenes where you see Jimmy Stewart with his shirt off, you're like, bro, a couple of push-ups, man. Come on, you gotta tighten up a little bit. Come on, bro.
3 meals a day. Maybe some protein powder, something.
A couple, work out a little bit, Jeffries. Work out just a little bit. You're not turning heads at the gym, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I mean, just, that this man that we don't know too much about is dangerous.
Yeah.
He gives off these vibes just watching him across the courtyard that, there's something not quite right with him.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because he's doing a silent performance.
Mm-hmm.
He's observed, honestly, the entire film, and I don't think he has a single line until the end of the movie.
No, he talks throughout the movie.
Does he?
We have him when he's tending to his garden, and the neighbor that lives on the ground floor.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
She, leans over and tells him, hey, you're overwatering your plants, and he's, shut up, and, leave me alone, and you get, like, those little remarks from him. You see him on the phone, and his wife trying to get his attention, and, again, it's, shut up, let me do this. It's not till he gets to the apartment where he's, talk to me, say something to me, because he's just so close to losing it.
And I think that's the thing. Yeah, he does say these, he is saying these little quips, these things, that reveal that he's kind of short-tempered, he's kind of a jerk. But when we're observing him through Jeffrey's window, we're seeing him talk, but we can't really hear him. And he's doing so much with his body.
Mm-hmm.
And when he's cleaning the apartment, how his expression just looks so... Deadpan. And it's fascinating to see this guy is cleaning up the death of his wife, right?
Yeah.
And he looks so, like, both exhausted, but not really disturbed by it. He seems so detached from the situation. It's kind of fascinating to see that performance out of somebody, especially in a movie like this.
We don't get true emotion out of him until he gets the letter.
Yes. Until he's scared.
Until he reads that, I know what you did. Or, does it say, I know what you did? Or, where is she?
Where's your wife?
And you get that, just like he's gone pale. Just like, oh my God, how do they know? This whole time, I've gotten rid of things slowly. I've been cleaning. How would they know?
I think it's just a thing where he is doing so well with so little. Because, like, really think about it. He's not playing against anyone, really. Like, his wife is out of the picture, like, fucking 20 minutes into the movie, 30 minutes into the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just him cleaning his apartment. Or him, like, slipping in and out of his apartment, carrying, like briefcases. And then we are building up, what's in the briefcase? Mm-hmm. Oh, this guy's a fucking monster.
Yeah.
Oh, is this his first wife? He's probably killed, like, 6 wives before this. And we get into the mood of Jeffrey's, where we are in his perspective. What's in there? I need to know.
Yeah.
Of course he killed somebody. You heard the scream, you heard the glass break. There's no way he didn't kill somebody. I'm not paranoid. Obviously he did it. And that's the genius of the movie. It makes you and Jeffries the same psyche, right? Yeah. Trying to solve this mystery.
I mean, another one of my favorite parts of this movie is all the times that Jeffries is watching Lars across the way and the apartment's pitch black, and you just see that cigarette slowly light up, and then
that cigar just and you see it illuminate in there. It's like, oh, it's so good.
It's like he's, shining a signal at Jeffrey across the way, like, I'm right here.
I know you're watching.
I'm within, arm's reach, but you're never gonna get me.
It's a good movie.
It's a fun movie.
But any other thoughts on Rear Window?
I mean, overall great film.
I say Hitchcock's best.
It's close, but for me, I'm sticking with Psycho. But yeah, it keeps you thinking the entire time. And I love movies where you're chasing the trail and you're like, I'm pretty sure I'm right about this, but am I really right about this? And that's where we end up, in the climax where Lars has figured it out. He calls Jeffrey's apartment. He figures out you're the one that made the phone call to me earlier. You get the lights turned off in the hallway, and it's just him scrambling in his apartment. How am I going to protect myself when I can't even lock my own door?
How am I going to defeat this gorilla coming for me?
Which, I think is brilliant that he uses his flash bulbs to kind of stop him in his tracks.
Well, that's the genius, Oh, he's coming at you, and Jeffrey's now shining a light on this man's, atrocities. He's like, look, I found you out. Look, haha, now you're being illuminated. Now everyone's gonna know what you did. It's another symbolic gesture in the movie.
Yeah,
Or I'm full of shit. Either one is fine.
It's symbolic, but it's also him using his professional skills with, hey, I know that this flash is so strong that's gonna stop him in his tracks. I've worked with strobe lights. You look into one of those, you're seeing spots for about an hour. But then, it's like, okay, you're getting him to stop briefly for a few minutes. Well, what are you going to do when you run out of flash bulbs and you're still stuck in your chair?
He's buying time. He knows Doyle's on his way with his goons.
Yeah, and then we get him being, thrown out the window as Doyle's trying to make his way across one courtyard into his building.
Well, Doyle wasn't fast. His goons were slowing him down.
But I mean, it's a really good climax and leading up to the fight and just how he rolls over so fast. Jeffries falls to the ground and right away, oh, do you have him? Yeah, and he admitted the whole thing. The body's over here. And it's just like, wow, what happened in those 5 minutes?
He was like, well, I'm found out. That goddamn crippled survived the fall. Well, I'm fucked. Well, yeah, I did it.
Cops, you don't know about this dog across the way, but I killed him too.
But yeah, so that's Rear Window. Great movie. Love the movie.
Iconic movie.
I call it Hitchcock's best. It's my favorite. But yeah, 2 big thumbs up.
Same here. It's one of my favorites, not my favorite, all-time favorite Hitchcock movie. But if you haven't seen it, give it a watch.
But next week is going to be a little different. We're ending Hitchcock month with Rear Window, and we're going to do something that we did for the first time last year at the podcast. Yes, we are going to be doing our year in review. We're going to talk about, I guess, our favorite episodes we recorded this year, the favorite movies we watched this year, and some of the worst movies we watched this year.
And some of the fun things that we've done for the podcast, events that we've gone to. It's going to be a really fun episode. If you want to ask us questions, and maybe we'll answer some questions during our year in review, send us some questions on Instagram.
Yes, and you can also comment on the bottom of this video on our YouTube channel, The Film Vault. That is The Film Vault on YouTube. But there's also going to be something else on the YouTube channel, on the feed. A little bonus episode, maybe?
That's right. Since it's the holiday season, we're just days away from Christmas. We're going to give you guys a gift. We're doing a bonus episode. And it's not a Hitchcock movie. It's something that we kind of wanted to do completely random.
Something that we thought could only be done if we got some guests on, because we needed more power to contain this monster of an episode.
Yeah, because we know movies, but we're not masters of all crafts of, films. So we had to bring in 2 people to help us discover
Godzilla.
But which Godzilla?
1998, directed by Roland Emmerich, starring Matthew Broderick, considered one of the worst Godzilla films ever made. Also considered one of the worst summer blockbusters ever produced. A movie so bad, Toho ripped the rights away from Paramount Pictures for 15 years before they make another Godzilla movie.
That's right. We're doing a crappy Godzilla movie. How could we not? It's one from the millennial generation. I remember seeing this in the theater. My God, I don't remember how long this movie was. This thing just stretched.
And stretched. And stretched. But we're done stretching. The end of this episode. So, Boo, any last words?
Good evening.
Have a good week, everybody.